as the last speaker, I want you to know that I'll follow my wife's advice and I'll be brief. But I do have some observations I want to visit with you about, and one of them is what a privilege it is to represent the wheat growers across this state and this nation, and I'm proud to be able to do that. It's really a challenge to, as you go to Washington, D.C. and try to deal with some areas up there that's so relatively unknown. Dr. Anderson talked about the wheat prices, the volatility and the challenges there. I don't know where y'all have noticed, but there's a lot of volatility and challenges in Washington, D.C. And we deal with it every day. What a great opportunity you have to have representatives in D.C., and not just myself. I'm talking about the NAWG staff. They do a great job. Chandler Gould and his staff, they are really first class, and they really have a passion about representing wheat and doing it in a way that's beneficial to the wheat growers across the country. I've watched over the years people that have a passion for what to do, and they're always very successful, the people that have a passion for what they're doing. It doesn't always ensure success, but it always ensures that you'll do the very best that you can if you have a passion for it. As I watched the naming of the conferees, I don't know about you, I was very happy to see one of our own, Frank Lucas, as being one of those conferee members of the House, and he'll do us a great job. Common sense, and got a great feel for agriculture and what's going on in the world of ag today. But I think the House and the Senate together has 56 conferees. Can you imagine setting a room of all politicians, trying to figure out and get them all to come together to develop a farm bill? What a challenge. And I don't know, Chairman Conaway is a very capable guy, and I've learned to appreciate him, but it's been a real learning experience for him. I watched that as that farm bill is taking place, and I remember visiting with Congressman Lucas, and Chairman Conaway had a idea when he started talking about the farm bill that he was going to get it done in a record time. In my visits with Congressman Lucas, he just kind of smiled and said he's in for a lot of surprises, and hadn't he been? It's coming along. Lots of good things going. Some of the things that we're concerned about is the SNAP program and the work requirements, and we're really concerned about how that's going to play out. I really think the Senate, Senator Roberts, Chairman Roberts, is going to change that menu a little bit. I don't know exactly how much or exactly how that's going to turn out. We're really interested in the research dollars that's come in. Dr. Carver and a lot of other people know that federal research dollars that come in across this country, especially to our land-grant universities, how important that is. And they've raised some of that from $10 million to $15 million, which is really peanuts. Isn't it amazing when the federal government doesn't consider you a viable part of the farm bill when you only use $10 million? That's not a small amount to me, but it's really important to researchers across the country, and we're very hopeful that we'll continue to increase that. One of the things that we're looking at is making sure that we don't have any changes in the insurance. The crop insurance is not a minor part of this farm bill. It's a major part of this farm bill. We're looking forward to maintaining what we've got, and if anything, maybe increasing it and enhancing a little bit. Our staff has taken a look at, I can't remember the number of amendments that they said, but it was in the hundreds, the number of amendments that they'd come up for the farm bill. Can you imagine having to take a look at every one of those amendments and see which is harmful and which is good? It's a real challenge to do that, and they've studied those. They brought some of them forward, and some of them we've signed off on a letter to send to the congressional leaders and let them know, and USDA to let them know some things that we're very comfortable with and some things we have some concerns about. I don't know, probably most folks in this room have heard the word trade war, tariffs, and we deal with that every single day of the world. And it's amazing that people have not figured out yet. We were, over the years, we've never been in a trade war because we surrendered our trade. We just gave it away. You know, we don't put any requirements on other people's products. We just let them put it on ours. Now, there's something wrong with that picture, isn't it? You know, I know it's hard for y'all to imagine, but I don't agree with President Trump all the time. You know, I know that's amazing, but I just don't agree with him on every issue. But sometimes being a little hard-nosed is not all that bad about trying to come up with a good trade issue. It really worries me that the farmers are the ones that have to suffer because of it, though. And I know they've come out with a new program, $12 billion. You know, can you wait for the consumers to get a hold of that and figure out what they can do with it? You know, they've asked us to send some input to advise them or tell them how we'd like to see that money spent. And we've talked as a national board and around each state has made recommendations, and we've talked about a lot of different things. One of the concerns that I have is they're talking about putting a lot of that into some export enhancements, and apparently we need that with the difference in freight between Russia and us. We might need some export enhancements, maybe some transportation issues. There's lots of things they can do with that money, but if you talk about trade issues causing you some challenges as far as profitability, then you've got to think just a moment about where wheat would be if we didn't have tariffs and if we didn't have trade issues. I read some figures. We talked about China a while ago, and for the last several years, I think they imported, from March to June, they imported 24 million metric tons of wheat. And this past March through June, they imported 0. Now think about that a moment, see what kind of impact that has on you. 25% tariff, you know, doesn't sound like much if you don't own any wheat. It sounds like a lot for a wheat farmer. But we're not going to move a lot of our product without some help from the marketplace. And I really do believe President Trump is going to change that for us. I don't know exactly how that's going to come about. And I understand being a tough negotiator is really good when you're in Washington, D.C., and you're a multi-billionaire and you've got your living made. It's really not a challenge. But if you're out on the farm trying to make a living, trying to make it work for you, it's a little more of a challenge when you're standing the blunt of the trade. I have a question for you. What would wheat be if we didn't have the tariffs and things going on? You know, we're talking about nearly $6 wheat. What would it be? I don't know. There's something that tells me it would be a great deal higher. I don't know exactly where it would be or what it would be, but it'd be a great deal higher. As we look at some issues that we've shared with the Secretary of Ag, and we've had an opportunity to visit with him on some occasions, and we shared with him that it's really important for us to make sure that we have a sound farm program that will enable our next generation to continue in agriculture. It's going to be a real challenge for the young farmers across this country with the cost of operation and to be able to continue to stay in business. The farm program is not designed for us to make a huge profit. It's designed for us to pay our bills. And I don't know about you, but I've talked to a lot of bankers and where commercial banks or farm credit banks around the country, and that's a pretty important issue to them, where you can pay your bills and pay them. You have any bankers like that want to be paid back? Mine's real hard-nosed like that. He wants to be paid back. And when I talk about my son and my grandsons, he probably, if we didn't have crop insurance, I'd probably have to sign all their notes. So I've got a lot of reasons I want crop insurance. Really and truly, though, if you think about what's going on in Washington, D.C., so much controversy, so much negativity, I get tired of it. Y'all ever get sick to death of listening to that negativity? I would sure like to see, I heard a good presentation a while ago from Kim Anderson, and it was positive. I love to see that. We need a little more optimism across this country. We don't have any optimism anymore. We have people that want to think about all the negative aspects that they can think of and bring all of them focus on the negative parts of agriculture. What a privilege it is to be a part of agriculture and be a farmer. I told somebody one day that they were questioning me about, y'all probably don't know this, but when I was named president of the National Wheat Growers, we had a meeting of all of our states, and all of our officers were there, It may come as a surprise to you, but I announced to that group that as of that very moment, I was coming out of the closet. You think I didn't get somebody listening to me? And they're leaned over and listening, and I said, yes, I want to confess to you that I'm a Christian and I'm a licensed minister, and I'm not ashamed of it. It really does bother me to go across this country and visit with some high-profile folks. Y'all notice when you go to Washington, D.C., everybody's important except you. Everybody's important when you go to Washington, D.C., but I've noticed one thing about that. There's a lot of people across this country who want you to be ashamed of the fact if you tell folks that you're a Christian. Isn't that terrible? I don't intend to ever do that. And I'm not going to tell the Lord to strike me dead if I ever do that. I'm not that crazy. But I do want you to know that you have representation in Washington, D.C., but you got some people that want the very best for the farmers across this country. And the reason they do is because they have their own families back home. I cannot figure out to save my life why EPA and some of those folks have the idea that we want to challenge the issue of safety of food, whether it's a chemical or it's a fertilizer or whatever in the world it is. Why would we want to do something like that when we feed our own products, our own commodities, our own children and grandchildren? What's the matter with those folks? They've lost their brains. We had a good friend in the EPA by the name of Scott Pruitt, and I know it's hard to imagine, but Scott probably messed up a time or two. What an understatement. But you know what? He did a lot of good up there too. And I was glad to see him up there talking on our behalf. And I've got some friends in California, and when we talk about issues in California and concerns about them, their number one issue in California is requirements from EPA. They can't start their tractor up and drive it down through a field and stir up dust without somebody turning them in. Now, in western Oklahoma, where my nearest neighbor is a mile away, and my dust, sometimes when it's out of the north, it has to be out of the north to blow on him, but he don't ever complain about it. But they do in California in different places, and isn't it a shame that they have to deal with that? They shouldn't be like that. They should let us alone, let us feed this world and this country. They're not doing it. I've got sidetracked a little bit from talking about farm bills and farm issues, but honestly and truly, we're going to have a farm bill, and it's going to be a reasonably good farm bill. It won't be everything that we want. There'll be some things in it that we're not excited about, but as your NAWG staff and as your representatives in Washington, D.C., we're going to do our dead level best to see to it that there's not anything completely crazy out there that will harm us. We've talked so much in the past about what do we expect out of the new farm bill, and the comment all over the world has been from farmers is do no harm. Don't mess it up. It may not be great and it may not be perfect, but let's don't mess up what we've got. Let's try to improve on it, if anything. And I think we're going to do that with crop insurance. I don't think they're going to be able to touch it. There's some people out there that would like to. Let me tell you this before I close. If you think it's not important to have representation in Washington, D.C., you've got another thing coming. There's no telling in the world what will come down that pike if you don't have somebody up there protecting the farmers across this country. And I'm not telling you that everybody up there is crazy, just most of them. They have some problems up there, but we've got some good representatives from this state. I'm proud to say that our legislators from the state of Oklahoma do us proud. It really does me good when I go around to those different offices and talk to our legislators and ask them about farm issues. And the first thing they say to me is they say, Jimmie, said, we understand your concerns, and we don't exactly know how we'll vote on that issue, but we want to talk to Frank first. They want to talk to Frank Lucas before they make a decision. Isn't that great that we've got a leader like that out there? And he didn't pay me to say that, I want you to know. But there's a lot of concerns out there as to how all this is going to play out and how we're going to be able to keep that next generation. And honestly and truly, all the farm bills in the world don't have any worth whatsoever, and this keeps the next generation in agriculture. I'm a little concerned about that because I have a son, 2 grandsons that farm with me. And I know you can't believe this, you got to use a little imagination, but I'd ask you to do this, but I have a new 8-year-old great-grandson, and that little yahoo looks like a farmer if I ever saw one. I saw a sonogram when he was not even born, and it looked like he had a baseball cap on to me. I couldn't tell. You want to be a farmer? And then said, you wouldn't really be that cruel to him, would you? You wouldn't try to force him. I said, no, we would not in 100 years force him into agriculture. But I'll tell you what we will do. We'll darn sure encourage him. And we'll brag on him and let him know that it's really important to do a thing that's really minor to a lot of people. But if you're hungry, it's not minor to you. We'll encourage him to help feed the world. Thank you very much.